Right now, at this very moment, someone out there is holding your name inside their chest like an answered prayer. They haven't spoken yet. They may be standing only a few footsteps away from reaching you, phone in hand, your name on the screen, courage just barely within reach, and then pulling back. But the feeling driving them forward, that is not small. That is not ordinary. It is the kind of feeling that doesn't arrive without reason, the kind that doesn't knock gently. It settles in, quietly, and refuses to leave until it is finally heard. This person carries something for you that everyday words struggle to contain, not a surface-level curiosity, not a fleeting wish. Something that sinks deep into their quiet hours, grows heavier as the nights get longer, and simply refuses to let go no matter how many times they've tried to convince themselves otherwise. They have sat with this feeling through entire seasons, through mornings that came and went, through evenings spent pretending everything was fine. And still there it is, unchanged, patient, waiting. They have been navigating something difficult, a season of confusion, of searching, of emotional weight that pressed in from every direction. And in the middle of all of it, one thing kept surfacing. Not a solution, not a distraction, your presence, your face, like something their soul already knew the answer to, even when their mind was still asking the question. There is something profound about that. When everything around a person is shifting, when they are uncertain about the future, unsettled by the present, and exhausted by trying to hold themselves together, and the one constant that keeps rising through all of that noise is a single person's name. That is not coincidence. That is not the mind wandering. That is the heart speaking in the only language it knows. Think about what that means. Out of everyone this person could have fixed their attention on during their hardest days, your name was the one that kept rising to the surface. What does that say about how deeply you have settled into someone's inner world? What does it mean to be the thought someone returns to, not by choice, but by pull, the way water always finds its way downhill, naturally, inevitably, without needing to be directed? They have rehearsed this moment. In quiet rooms, during long drives, in the last seconds before sleep pulls them under. They've thought about what to say first, how to explain feelings that refuse to arrange themselves neatly, how to bridge what they feel and what language can hold. Because this isn't a casual conversation they're preparing for. This is a confession that has waited long enough. This is the kind of moment a person only prepares for when the alternative, staying silent, has become more painful than the fear of speaking. And that fear is real. Do not underestimate what it costs someone to prepare to be honest about something this deep. Every time they've come close, something inside them has hesitated. What if the words come out wrong? What if the timing is off? What if, in the act of finally saying everything, they lose the very thing they've been trying so carefully to protect? These are not small fears. These are the fears that have kept this feeling locked away for weeks, maybe months. But the weight has grown too heavy now, and they know it. And underneath all that rehearsed preparation sits one honest and persistent fear. Will you understand? Will you receive them with real openness? Or will speaking the truth damage something they are not ready to lose? The bravest act is reaching toward the one you fear losing most. Here's what psychology teaches us about this pattern. When a person's mind returns to someone repeatedly, especially during stress, during grief, during transition, it is not random. The mind is telling us something true. It anchors to what matters. It holds on to people who carry significance, safety, or something unresolved. You have become that anchor. And anchors are not easily released. Psychologists have long understood that during periods of emotional difficulty, the mind does something remarkable. Rather than detaching, it reaches. It searches for connection points, for people, for places, for memories that carry a sense of safety or meaning. And the person it returns to most is rarely chosen consciously. It is drawn forward from somewhere deeper, from a layer of the self that operates beneath logic and reason. That is where you live, in this person's inner world. Not on the surface where things are easy to dismiss, but deep down, where only the things that truly matter are kept. This person has tried to move past it, quietly, in ways no one could see. They redirected attention, they filled their hours. They made plans, kept busy, told themselves that time would do what willpower couldn't. But every detour circled back, every distraction eventually cleared, and there you were, unchanged, lodged somewhere logic could never reach. There you were, as present as ever, as vivid as the first moment this feeling began. Have you ever tried to outrun something that lives inside you? You cannot. You can exhaust yourself in the attempt, but the feeling waits. It is patient in a way that the thinking mind is not. And this person has learned that. They've learned it through every failed attempt to simply move on, through every moment they thought they had finally succeeded, only to hear your name in a song, or see something that reminded them of you, and feel everything rise back up as if no time had passed at all. What they want from this isn't perfection. It isn't a grand setting or a rehearsed speech. They want the real you, present, honest, unguarded. They've been carrying a performance of their own feelings for far too long, and what they're truly asking for is a witness, someone willing to simply be there. Someone who will not flinch when the walls come down. Someone who will sit in the truth of the moment without trying to reshape it into something more comfortable. That is what this is really about. Not romance as the world tends to define it, not grand gestures or perfectly timed words, but something older than all of that, something quieter and more essential. The desire to be truly seen by the one person whose seeing matters most. Some connections don't fade, they quietly deepen in the spaces between. And here is something worth sitting with. The fact that you are even hearing these words right now, the fact that something in this message is landing somewhere specific inside you that is not accidental either. Awareness often arrives just before the moment it is needed most. Something in you may already sense that a shift is coming, a conversation, a message, a meeting that was a long time in the making. You may not be able to name it yet, but something in the way you've been feeling lately has been quietly preparing you for it. So ask yourself honestly, have you felt something lately that you couldn't quite explain? A thought that arrived without warning? A name that surfaced during a moment of stillness? A dream that left a residue you couldn't shake by morning? That kind of pull is rarely one-directional. When one heart is moving toward another, there is often an echo, a faint signal that travels across the distance between them and arrives as a feeling without a clear source. Energy is not invisible in the way we sometimes assume. It leaves traces. It moves through the small, quiet moments of a day, through an inexplicable smile, through the sudden recall of a conversation that happened years ago, through the strange comfort of thinking about someone you haven't spoken to in far too long. These are not random firings of a restless mind. These are signals, and you would do well to pay attention to them. Someone is preparing their words. Someone is finding their courage, one breath at a time. They are not rushing, because this is too important to rush. They want to get it right, not because they are performing, but because they know how rare this kind of feeling is. They know that what they carry for you is not something that comes along in every chapter of a life. It is the kind of thing people look back on and understand only in hindsight, only after they've either found the courage to say it or spent years wishing they had. They do not want to spend years wishing. That is what is driving them forward now. Not confidence. They may still feel very little of that. But the quiet, firm understanding that silence is no longer acceptable, that whatever comes next is better than carrying this alone. And when they finally step forward, it will not feel like coincidence. It will feel like something that was always meant to happen, something that simply needed the right moment to begin. It will feel like a door opening that was always there, one that neither of you had the courage to reach for at the same time, until now. That is how the most important connections often work. They don't arrive with fanfare. They arrive in a quiet moment, when both people have finally grown enough to hold the weight of what they mean to each other. When the fear is still present, but the need to speak has finally become greater. When the heart overrules the hesitation and simply says enough, waiting, it is time. So if something in you has been restless lately, if you've found yourself thinking about someone in ways you can't easily explain, if there is a name that keeps returning to your thoughts, no matter how many times you set it aside, pay attention to that. Do not dismiss it as distraction or nostalgia. The heart does not repeat itself without reason. It circles back to what remains unfinished, to what still matters, to what still has a future, if only someone is brave enough to say so. You may be closer to that moment than you realize, and so may they. If this touched something in you, give it a like. It helps Psychology Wisdom reach more people who need to hear this. Do you believe some connections are genuinely meant to find their way back?